In the sun-scorched heart of West Africa, a subtle but high-stakes diplomatic standoff is unfolding, one that could redefine the region's political future. On one side stands Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the young, charismatic leader of Burkina Faso. On the other is Ambassador Sandra Clark Langley, the seasoned U.S. diplomat navigating one of the most challenging postings of her career. Their relationship is not marked by open hostility, but by a complex, cautious dance, one built on historical distrust, shifting global alliances, and competing visions for Burkina Faso's path forward. What is really happening behind closed doors in Ouagadougou? And what does the tense dynamic between Traoré and Langley reveal about Africa's evolving place on the global chessboard? A young revolutionary with old wounds in his sights. Since taking power in September 2022 following a military coup, Captain Traoré has emerged as one of the most outspoken leaders in Africa's growing resistance to Western influence. His speeches invoke Pan-Africanism, national pride, and the legacy of Thomas Sankara, the assassinated revolutionary who once tried to liberate Burkina Faso from neo-colonial control. Traoré sees himself not as a mere soldier in power, but as a protector of national sovereignty, determined to break free from decades of foreign domination, economic dependency, and imposed democracy. Africa must reclaim its dignity, he declared in a fiery public address in 2023. We are not children to be guided. We are a sovereign people. Enter Langley, the diplomatic veteran. Ambassador Sandra Langley, a veteran of U.S. Foreign Service, arrived in Burkina Faso with a mandate to maintain bilateral ties, promote democratic governance, and monitor rising instability in the Sahel. But what she walked into was no ordinary diplomatic post. The junta's swift expulsion of French troops, renewed ties with Russia, and public rejection of Western aid conditionalities set the stage for a delicate mission. Langley, by all accounts, has remained professional and soft-spoken, but her very presence has become emblematic of the Western influence Traoré seeks to shed. She has rarely spoken to the press, yet her role has been frequently referenced in local and regional discourse, not always favorably. Closed-door meetings, open-ended accusations. Although details remain closely guarded, multiple sources suggest a strained but ongoing line of communication between Traoré's inner circle and the U.S. Embassy. Meetings have reportedly touched on issues ranging from human rights concerns to military cooperation and election timelines. However, Traoré's government has been wary, believing that the U.S. agenda, while cloaked in diplomatic language, seeks to pressure the transitional leadership into policy directions that align with American strategic interests rather than Burkina Faso's national priorities. Langley, for her part, has tried to walk a tightrope, engaging with civil society, NGOs, and regional partners while avoiding direct confrontation with the ruling authorities. Still, the message from Traoré has been clear. Burkina Faso will chart its own path, with or without U.S. approval. The shadow of Russia and the new partners. One of the key stress points in the Traoré-Langley relationship has been Burkina Faso's shifting alliances, particularly its embrace of Russia as a new military and economic partner. Following the ouster of French forces, Ouagadougou has welcomed what Traoré calls sovereign partnerships that do not come with political strings attached. This includes reported cooperation with the Wagner Group, the controversial Russian paramilitary organization, and increasing military aid from Moscow. For Langley, and the U.S. more broadly, Russia's deepening presence in the Sahel is alarming. Officially, the U.S. urges diversified, democratic partnerships, but unofficially, Washington sees these moves as a potential foothold for authoritarian influence and resource competition. Traoré, however, insists that his partnerships are pragmatic, not ideological. We will work with those who respect us, not those who try to control us, he said in a nationally televised interview. Public opinion and the optics of power. Interestingly, much of the Burkinabe public appears to side with Traoré. On social media and in town hall meetings, many see him as a symbol of resistance, a young leader standing up to Western powers that have long dictated the continent's direction. Ambassador Langley, despite her low profile, is often cast in the narrative as a representative of outdated neocolonialism. Protests have erupted outside the U.S. Embassy. Youth leaders have publicly criticized Western diplomats. And even media houses, once reliant on foreign grants, are beginning to question their editorial independence. This has placed Langley in a difficult position. Engaging too forcefully risks feeding anti-Western sentiment. Remaining silent, on the other hand, risks ceding diplomatic space to other players, namely Russia, China, and Turkey. Is there a middle ground? Despite the friction, both TRAORÉ and Langley appear to recognize that cutting ties completely is neither feasible nor beneficial. The U.S. remains one of Burkina Faso's largest humanitarian donors and a key player in regional counterterrorism efforts. Langley's efforts have included back-channel diplomacy, private outreach to religious and traditional leaders, and proposals for non-political cooperation, such as agricultural aid, education initiatives, and public health programs. TRAORÉ, while cautious, has not entirely rejected U.S. engagement. Instead, he is demanding that any cooperation be grounded in mutual respect and African leadership. This could lay the groundwork for a new kind of relationship, one in which the U.S. plays a supporting, not directive, role. The broader implication for Africa. The TRAORÉ-Langley dynamic is not unique. Across Africa, especially in nations like Mali, Niger, and Guinea, similar tensions are emerging as military-led governments and even elected officials push back against what they perceive as Western overreach. Langley's experience in Burkina Faso may soon become the norm for Western diplomats operating in an increasingly assertive and multipolar Africa. The real question is whether these powers can adapt to a new era of African self-determination, or if the continent will descend into another cycle of proxy struggles and broken promises. Behind the curtains of official statements and diplomatic handshakes lies a tense, strategic dance, one that encapsulates the battle for Africa's future. Captain Ibrahim Traoré represents a new wave of African leadership, bold, defiant, and unapologetically nationalist. Ambassador Sandra Langley embodies a traditional model of Western diplomacy, one now being questioned, tested, and redefined. Their relationship is not just about Burkina Faso. It is about the shifting balance of global power, the future of international partnerships, and the voice of a continent long spoken for, now learning to speak for itself. And as this dance continues, the world watches, not just for who leads, but for how far each is willing